Welcome to another episode of the Virginia Investor Podcast. Today's guest didn't grow up in a real estate family, wasn't handed investors, capital, a roadmap, and just a few years ago, he was working at IHOP and installing gas lines around Richmond. Now he's helping investors secure millions in financing while leading one of Virginia's fastest growing real estate investing communities. Today, we're talking about how he made that leap and how you might be able to do the same. Tom DeLegge, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
I'm excited to get into your story. I've seen a lot of stuff that you've been doing in our community, especially focused on young investors, and we'll get into that. And I know your mindset is everyone is a young investor, and we'll get into that a bit later. But first, tell me about your childhood. Where were you born? What was childhood like?
Well, first, I'm a Chesterfield County native, 26 years and counting.
Awesome.
Been there all my life. We'll see if they keep putting data centers around us, how long that streak will keep going.
Right.
Grew up in Midlothian. Went to Cosby High School, graduated in 2018. From there, I thought I was going to be a middle school level math teacher, but I quickly figured out in less than half a semester that probably wasn't a good idea.
Interesting. Did you play any sports growing up?
Yeah, so I played basketball for a couple years. Naturally, I was a little bit bigger and taller than some of the guys, so center was just a
nice
natural position for me. Couldn't shoot, but I could block.
Nice,
so.
Good. What about your parents? What do they do for a living?
So my dad, he and my mom, I'll say, had a business growing up called Ducks in a Row, for anybody that's been in Midlothian for a while.
That sounds very familiar. I grew up in Chesterfield too. What is that store?
So, if I remember correctly, it was a fabric blinds and almost like an upholstery type store.
Okay.
And that naturally, with other businesses, didn't last past 2008.
Interesting.
When the banks failed, they needed money, and banks wouldn't, had no money to give out. So naturally, their business went under. And we'll get into that a little bit later as to how that ties in with what I do. But that's what they did. And then Dad, after that happened, transitioned into the vice president role of a glove manufacturing company that bought dying businesses as well and got them 2 feet out of the ground and running, and was very successful at that. And exited that around, I think, 2021, right after COVID hit. Mom did anything and everything she possibly could to make sure we had what we needed. So
awesome.
Whether that was being a AAA travel agent, working at Crate and Barrel, or now transitioning into Dominion, she did what she could.
Did your father, would you consider his role, obviously entrepreneurial with Ducks in a Row, which is awesome. Did it go more corporate at that vice president position, or was it kind of a small business, but higher up in the company?
Oh, it was definitely a large business.
Okay.
When he came on, and don't quote me on the numbers here, I was told that it was a couple $1 million private business, and when he left in 2020, 2021-ish, and they got bought by a larger business, that it was a publicly traded multi-billion-dollar business.
Interesting. All right.
So cool. Don't have the exact numbers, but
but he got some awesome experience. I mean, going from
an
entrepreneur to doing that and then seeing the rise of that company must have been incredible.
Don's got over 50 years of business experience.
Awesome.
Easily.
As far as being a student, how were your grades going up? Were you all honors? Did you not care about grades? What did that look like?
So, in high school, I was, I'll say I was more of a bookworm. I didn't hit social butterfly till probably about 5 years after. Mm-hmm. So, wasn't really good at making friends, was the guy that sat by himself. You could say textbook introvert. Would do what I got to do, get good grades, go home, and, just do whatever in spare time. Graduated from Cosby with an advanced diploma is what the county does. I'm not sure if anybody else, any other high school in the nation does an advanced diploma, but essentially it just means that I did more credits to reach a higher tier, I guess. It doesn't necessarily mean anything out here, but I would say for mostly A's and B's.
What was your aspirations, let's say, in high school? Well, let's say even earlier. Did you have any professional aspirations in middle school? I mean, I know that sounds ridiculous,
Sure.
But some people I know are from middle school, they already know what they want to do in life. Maybe it's something their parents did or just something they're really intrigued by, and they go off their whole life and do that. Some people get to high school and start to develop aspirations of like earning money or sort of what career they want to have. And then most people, I would say, have no idea, right? And they just know they need to get decent grades and then either try to go to college or go into the workforce. I think a lot of this, from what I've seen, is based off like what they see from their parents and what they see from their family. Like if they didn't come from a lot of money, they want to earn a lot of money, so they're not in that situation. If they came from an entrepreneurial family, typically they might want to be an entrepreneur. If they come from a big corporate family, that's what they think the route should be, and then maybe that changes over time. What was your sort of view on finances and professional career, maybe in the high school years?
Really had the blinders up for most of high school, I would say. I mean, so going back to middle school, I had thought I would go into college for cinematography.
Okay.
So completely different spin. And then, I'm a math guy, right? So, naturally growing up around dad, numbers were all over the place.
Right.
And with the gift of ADHD, it's just focusing on the math that just makes sense to me. So that's where, I had other folks in class that would be like, hey, do you know how to do this? I'm lost. And I'm like, oh, yeah, here, you just do that, and you get that. And they're like, whoa.
Yeah.
So math has always been kind of somewhat easy to me. So I figured, why not be a middle school math teacher and help other people in the, down the road.
Sweet. So when you were in high school, does that require college? Were you going to go to college? Did you go to college?
So I went to, at the time, what was known as John Tyler Community College, now Brightpoint. Was there for half a semester in the tail end of 2018, and very quickly realized I'm taking a bunch of courses that have nothing to do with math.
Right. And
I'm going to continue taking a bunch of courses that have nothing to do with math. I'm going to be in a fair amount of debt to, albeit it's for a noble cause to be a teacher. And, at least at like a middle school level of teaching math, the money's not there, right? And I feel like there's something more I can do while at the same time not cutting my legs out.
Yeah.
So I didn't know what that was yet. Took a couple years to figure that out.
What did you do for work? Were you working during the years at John Tyler?
Yeah, so at first I started working at Johnny Rockets in 2018. Mm-hmm. Boy, oh boy, that guy that ran that, good owner, good guy, good church guy, fed the homeless, but he wasn't a businessman.
Yeah.
So he owned the one that was in Hancock Village in Chesterfield, and the one that was up at Short Pump. And those were the two closest ones to us. Now the closest, I think, is MacArthur and Norfolk, but that one's gone too. But he didn't own that one. It's just Johnny Rockets is not doing well. Didn't do well in Virginia. But from there, after it closed, 2018, transitioned to IHOP.
Okay.
Stayed there for a year. Just kind of figured myself out. Saved up some money and, was really trying to figure out what does life look like for me at 19.
Right.
What should life look for me? And so around, I'll say August of 2019, I had an opportunity come up to work with my brother-in-law as a pipe fitter in the city of Richmond for a company that was called HMI Utilities. And so if you look it up, HMI has been around forever, so long that he's got lineage that has worked there. And so I remember my first day, we were out looking for gas leaks, and they would have us drill probably like a 1-inch diameter, maybe 2-inch diameter hole in the street, just setting up cones around our truck. It was just him and I. And he would have me drill like probably a 3.5 foot hole, a deep hole. And they would have this like long steel rod that was probably maybe about this long. Mm-hmm. And we had to drive that thing into that hole we just drilled with just a sledgehammer. Yeah. And that thing, this was done all throughout Henrico, Richmond, Chesterfield. Mm-hmm. And so you get all different types of dirt underneath that road, maybe another layer of road. So you got to hammer through that thing, and sometimes it would take like 100 swings in like 100-degree heat. Yeah. So I learned real quick, I got to stay in shape, and I can't get winded after 10 swings. Right. So, because we got 2 more job sites to do. So we would go around, find gas leaks at first, so that the crews could come behind us, figure out where it's at, right, and fix them from there.
What were you doing with the holes? Was it like allowing you to like measure some levels or something like that?
Yeah, so they would have what's called a CGI gas indicator. that would have like a hose connected to it, and at the end of it, they would stick that end of the hose into the ground, and it would give a reading as to how much gas is coming out of the hole.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And if it were blowing, like if it was such a significant leak, you would sometimes be able to see it. So gas, if you can see natural gas coming out, it's colorless, but there's still an odor. It'll smell like rotten eggs almost.
Right.
And so they used to put what's like a 1-inch plastic pipe to the ground, and they would hold it up and see if they could see it. Now, older crews, from what I've heard and what I've seen some try to do, is they'll try and light it and see if it. And I'm like, I've heard too many nightmare stories.
Yeah.
Yeah, like right when I got into this, there was a kid no older than me at the time was working in Fairfax on a gas leak in a hole, and pulled out his phone to open up Snapchat, and the radiation from his phone lit the hole, and he had his hands melted together. So I'm like...
Yeah, I feel like that even just like drilling when you think there might be a gas leak.
So the neat thing about when you work on gas, right, nothing's electric.
Well, I was thinking like, are there any sparks or anything like that?
So the neat thing about...
I guess there wouldn't be, or else
about
you wouldn't
those
be drilling.
tools. Well, yeah, right. So, well, you'd be surprised. There's some questionable parts about working on utilities, especially around natural gas. That would be a whole different, separate conversation for... I'll say somewhat corruption within the city, but not going to go down that rabbit hole. No, so they use like air pressurized tools.
Yeah.
Maximum they would use is like 120 PSI for breaking up dirt to suck them up or dig them out with a backhoe.
Right.
To carefully dig down to pipes, because you're working with gas. If you yank that out, it just takes one spark to light up a city.
Yeah.
So there's definitely were some close calls throughout my time there. Even when I was early on as a foreman, we did some 24-hour shifts, and it was not pretty.
So you were a foreman, like pretty young, right? And so I would imagine that the team that you had working with you was not all young. What was that leadership like? And the reason I ask is because I was a manager in a motorcycle dealership of a service department, and I was the youngest guy there, and I was working with people that had been working on motorcycles. I was managing people who had been working on motorcycles for decades, right?
Yeah.
And it's a very interesting dynamic to win their respect and loyalty while being the punk kid, trying to ask them very politely or help them, be productive.
Yeah, so looking back on that career now, I started off as that punk kid. And so I learned bad habits from the folks that were there forever in the same position, never moved up. And I'm thinking, okay, this is how it's supposed to work. Because I'm coming from fresh out of high school.
For sure, yeah.
Trying college. I'm like, I don't know what's what. So learned some bad habits, grew out of them. That natural entrepreneur in me wanted to do more, and I felt like I wasn't contributing to the job. So I would take the initiative. I'm like, hey, what certifications do I need to keep doing more? And they had them in,
of course,
in our workplace where they're like, hey, just, when we get started in the morning, take these 2 tests every day. There's 2 different tests. There's like 50 different requirements. Mm-hmm. If you keep knocking these out, you'll be done by like the end of the month.
Right.
So I got so many certifications that, I was working on, like leak repairs where they got to take certain parts of the pipe out or, new installs. And so, naturally from, learning and doing all of that, it got recognized by a lot of the folks that were there. And quickly, I'll say the higher ups noticed, oh, this guy wants to work.
For sure.
He's willing to learn, so we can put him just about anywhere.
Right.
So I worked on every type of crew that we had. Going from laying down cast iron pipes, which is a whole separate division of the company, folks that solely worked on, let's say, maintaining the fire hydrants throughout the city, just taking pressure readings and spraying them to make them look good and cleaning them up, to switching out the old lead lines, right? I had plenty of experience, and then natural gas was kind of where I started, kind of where I finished. So when I wrapped up in, I'll say, toward the tail end of my career, I was on what was called a vac crew. And so those are guys that have trucks that are about the size of I'll say the average garbage truck. And keep in mind, I don't have a CDL.
Right.
You don't need a CDL to drive these. If it's anything 26,000 pounds net or under, don't need a CDL. And so these things had a giant tank on the back, and they would have like a separate engine most of the time, diesel engine, for vacuuming up dirt and a little bit of water, not too much because it works just like the same as a vacuum cleaner.
Right.
You suck up a bunch of water and it's not meant for it. You're going to kill the vacuum very quick. Same deal, just on a larger scale, and you can drive it around. So they specialized in, let's say, finding the utilities so that other crews don't accidentally hit them.
Right.
So let's say you're working in Richmond where they've got utilities just everywhere throughout the roads, back roads, whatever. Let's say there's a leak and there's a water pipe on top of it and cable and power. How do you get down to it safely without damaging the pipes, any of the utilities, or potentially killing a crewmate?
Yeah.
So they would task us to go down there and clear the way, I'll say, with the air tools, and they would use what's called an air lance to break down all the dirt and everything. Vacuum would suck it right up, and you could see clear as day, as clean as that thing has ever been since it was laid in, where those pipes are.
Interesting.
And so that's when I got promoted to foreman. And so at 20, I got promoted to site foreman. There were a couple folks that were phasing out and switching into, I'll say, true City of Richmond inspector roles that were separate from our company. And so they're like, well, this guy's got the certifications, and if anything, he's willing to keep getting them.
Right.
Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
So they took a chance on me, and so my crew, they had us on a very specific type of task for the vacuum crew, where we were welding on top of active gas lines.
That feels safe.
Well, that's what I said at first, and yeah, so luckily only had to pull out the fire extinguisher one time,
yeah,
but hopefully those guys have never had to do it since me.
It's amazing what, people with experience who know how to use those tools. I mean, again, same in a motorcycle shop, same in a lot of blue collar work, man. The experts that do that every day and have done it for 20, 30 years are just incredible at what they do.
Those guys have got an unreal amount of dad strength, I call it. It's
yeah, especially welders.
Oh yeah,
especially
those guys,
welders. Yeah.
It's nuts. So, but they had me welding from street level on pipes that were 4 feet underground.
Right.
So I had to navigate with a stick with a jumper cable on it,
right,
and weld that way. So a lot different than if you're welding right in front of you. It's a little bit different. So they tasked me with finding, let's say, lost utilities, because Richmond's got some time on it. And they used to keep track of all the utilities on paper, and they didn't keep them well.
Of course.
Paper fades. So they lost, I would say, a good amount of the utilities where they were. So they went to the last known location, said, hey, Tom, start here, dig down, find it, weld, and put a tracer wire on there is what they called it.
Right.
And then they'll trace it and see how far it goes. We'll keep going until it connects back to where they know it's at.
Right.
And so I would do that, as well as do what's called cathodically protecting the lines. So the lines would be electrically charged, which would wear out the density of the pipes. And so they would put what's called anodes in the ground that would act as batteries. And so instead of the pipe eating that electric charge, these magnesium bags would eat them.
Yeah.
So that's what I would do. And so the guys that worked with me were at least 40 with kids. Some that had kids around my age.
Right.
So it was an issue at first, but once they saw that I was willing to learn and listen from them, and also keep in mind what the company wanted us to do, it worked very, very beautifully together, where, those guys respected, hey, this kid doesn't know all his stuff, but he's willing to take in what I know. That's different.
Yeah, you're also probably willing to do the stuff that they don't want to do with their tenure and their age. Is again, at the motorcycle shop, those guys didn't want to do the paperwork. They'd be like, hey, let me knock that out for you,
I did.
And a lot of it was humility of just exactly what you just said is I wasn't there to tell them what to do. I was there to learn how I can support them at the role, right? And even though I'm technically their manager, my job is to support them at the role, and if I'm successful at that, then they're going to be successful technicians, right? And it's hard, but it's an awesome lesson to learn early on. And I think when I was in that position, I was probably 21, 22 years old.
Yeah.
What caused you to move on from that role? What did you do next?
So around, I'm trying to think of what year now, 2022 or 2023, around January, me and my father had an opportunity to take a trip up to Albany. And, at that point of his career, that's right at the tail end of COVID. And right when the company he had worked for got bought out by a bigger fish naturally.
Yeah.
And he didn't like the direction they were necessarily going. And so he was thinking, all right, well, I'm going to give you guys my year notice because we're in COVID. And I want to make sure I have some sort of income. Right. I don't have to retire yet. And so, he explored a number of options like Ace Hardware franchises or stuff like that. Like, how does he keep working without, a fear of being fired? So, or let go, I guess is probably a better term. So, when we took the trip up to Albany, it was with I'll say a private self-made billionaire that introduced us to what is called commercial loan brokering. And so essentially, it's not that far off from the traditional mortgage broker that's connecting buyers of real estate with lenders of real estate, right? So, whereas a broker has hundreds of connections with folks that have money, it's kind of the same thing for commercial loan brokers. So for commercial loan brokers, they're connected with hundreds of banks, lenders, hedge funds, private guys. And the caveat of it, you don't need to be licensed. It's just there's no regulation necessarily on it. There is at that time. Now, as I'll say, it's more Western states like California and other Western states that require licensing for it. So it's getting more regulated. But essentially, you find businesses or let's say real estate investors that need capital, and you connect them with let's say private folks that act as like a mortgage company that provide financing for, let's say, fix and flip, short-term rentals, long-term rentals, ground up, you name it, going all the way up to hotels. There's money out there. And then even with banks, we work with hundreds of banks still today through what's called the SBA. And so the SBA is a Small Business Administration. And essentially when you go and get a business loan from a bank, an SBA loan, the SBA guarantees a percentage of your loan will be paid back to the bank in the event that something happens, which is one of the main reasons why banks lend as much money out as they do, right? It's a tremendous amount of risk. So, just in our time, we've developed relationships with hundreds of banks. And from going up to Albany, we learned from him, the gentleman, that, what your return on time really means, what your return on your investment really means as a broker, right? Everybody hears that, time is money and I got to get what's worth my time. But really, it's not the same. It's not measured the same in every industry, right? So more or less, he showed us where to focus our efforts more than anything, and maybe some systems to employ, and really got us started, I'll say. But after we got started, he shot the starting pistol. We're off to the races.
Right.
We got to move our legs and get across that finish line.
Right.
He can't do it for us. So in our first year, we were a great commercial loan broker, I'll say, on the real estate investing side and on the commercial lending side as well. So where I tie into this, after I left Albany, I'm like, oh, so this is a whole world of financing that I didn't even know existed.
Did you go on that trip to Albany thinking you would get into this business with your dad, or was it your dad was going for an opportunity and you had the chance to tag along to obviously build the relationship?
Yeah, he framed it as he knew what he was doing, and
that was his plan. And then the door was kind of open.
Yeah, the door was definitely open. He said, hey, physical labor is great and you're learning a lot, but it's not going to last forever, right? Your body's going to give out on you at some point. But, if you can find a way for your mind to work for you instead and produce that same income, if not better than what you're doing physically, why not do that? And I said, you know what? You're right. Because I want kids someday, and I knew the projected path I was on. Don't get me wrong, it's a great career path, and I was definitely headed up to some sort of inspector at some point or supervisor role, but I didn't feel like this was it, right? Math was there for me.
Yeah.
And so naturally with financing is math.
Right.
So, so when we went up there, I more or less was skeptical. I'm like, oh, what really is this? I don't need a license for this.
Yeah.
I'm lending other people's money. Yeah, that sounds a little bit fishy. How do I do this, right? And so even going up there, we left with more questions than we came in with, which was good because now we're intrigued and this is something we feel like we can do. If not, would have just died there. Mm-hmm. From that trip, he went head first into this new venture called Brightview Commercial Capital. And he said, you know what? I want to do this with my kids. Regardless of what they're doing, we're going to have this together. And so he brought me and my sister into this and made us part owners right from the beginning, laid out exactly what the plan was in his mind, and kind of gave the vision from there of where he thought the business was going to go before we even got our first loan in.
And so he started, just to be clear, he started the Brightview Commercial Capital. Like that's not like some sort of branch or franchise or anything like that.
Not yet.
And then, yeah, that's awesome. And then as a commercial loan broker,
Yep.
are you're connecting buyers and lenders, right?
Yes.
And you're connecting resources like good people to each other so that they can make deals happen. And then you get some sort of percentage of the deal based on your work, right? Whatever your agreement is. Are you actually lending, like, and you said it earlier, you are coordinating the lending of other people's money,
Sure.
right? Like, is that accurate?
So when we started, yes, right? We started, of course, as commercial loan brokers, and we wanted to take it a step further from just saying, hey, Joe, this is Bob. Bob, Joe needs money. So we wanted to make it a seamless transition to get that money as fast as possible.
So now everything just goes through you guys, right? So
Goes through us.
it's almost less of a broker. You just have your partnerships over here and use their money, but you are the one doing lending now.
Yes, we are.
That's what I was getting at. Okay, cool.
Yep.
So it started more of a broker role, and then you guys transitioned and said, look, we can do the lending. It's the same. It's essentially the same thing, just a different agreement in the middle.
I'll give you a little bit behind that. So in our first year, we lent a large amount of money just from brokering. We were offered, new avenues from different folks and saying, hey, we see what you guys are doing. Do you want to have your own pool of capital and just do you have a due diligence to lend this amount of money out, every year? And we're like, yeah. I mean, what freedom comes with that? They're like, just about anything you want as long as we get paid back.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So, naturally from that, the business growed further, right? Because it's now we control the interest rates, we control the points, how much we're making,
Right. Yep.
and we're on the loan docs now.
Yeah.
So there's a lot more gravity that weighs on your shoulders that, oh, I got to close 3, 4, 5 loans this month to meet a quota. Whereas before it's like, all right, we don't have an office.
Right.
We're all owners, so we don't have an hourly. So went from more of a relaxed position to, all right, we got to get this done, which met our hunger to get it done. Right. So, and even then, we've grown way, way more beyond, I'll say, lending, and are still working on that at this point.
Why were you so, or I should say, how were you so successful that first year? Was it through, if you had to take an honest look at it, was it through relationships that were already in place? Because typically it involves a lot of networking, a lot of relationship building to be able to find the people that need money and the people that have money and then connect them. What was in place when you opened? How did you guys move so much money or so many transactions the first year?
So the number one piece of advice I give everybody, regardless of where they're at in investing, go to the meetups, right? Word of mouth beats any sort of marketing you can do. You can spend $1,000 for online marketing, and it doesn't mean anything as much as a $20 entry to go to a networking meeting for 2 hours and meet the folks you want as customers that are your repeat clients in your backyard.
What are you doing to learn the business? Because when you start with that much volume, I could assume there would be a lot of mistakes, or maybe a lot of like, you guys were doing business with good people, so maybe you didn't get caught on any of those, meaning not anything malicious or intentional by any means, but like you learn through doing a lot of times. What were you doing to learn this business? Was it just doing? Was it podcasts? Was it books? Was it other relationships? How were you learning with so much volume happening at the same time?
I would say just over time, when I started with this, Dad helped me out and said, here, this is someone I'm working with. Collect these documents.
Got it.
I didn't know what to look for on the documents, just collect them. He said, turn them into here. These guys are expecting it, and we'll do it this way. So I had to learn from going back and forth, hey, you can't have this written this way on a document, or it's got to be read this way. So I learned all the ways that underwriting works from a broker standpoint. And so now I understand why they're that way, so that with our own loans now, I know if I see this, a borrower's trying to, it coordinates to something that they're doing on their end, and it translates to something. So I learned that way from the hands-on experience naturally. The other part of it is around, I want to say 2024, around mid 2024. I took my mortgage classes, got my 20 hours in.
Sweet.
Not licensed, don't want to be licensed, because as soon as you hold that, it just takes one, in my opinion, one mistake on a commercial side for someone to see NMLS. I'll report you. They take it the wrong way and think that you did something wrong on the mortgage side, and there's fines, jail time, lose your license, whatever. Not worth it. So I've got great referral partners that will do mortgage, but I'm educated to know, I'll say for the most part, what they can get away with. So that way, if there's something that I can't do, I know exactly whose area it will be in. So that way, I want to tell people no as little as possible, that we can't help you with your financing, because that's where we were at. Growing up, my parents lost their business because they were told no, because the banks failed everybody. We don't want to fail anybody.
Yeah, and if you have the knowledge and resources, you can at least get them connected to where they want to go. And
Exactly.
And these days, there's so many places people can go for their niche, for what is, like, you can go to local banks, but certain local banks may not like commercial real estate. They might like single family. They have their buckets that they need, and they can't fill too many buckets up, or they can't fill a bucket up way more than other buckets because it creates too much risk, right?
Yep.
And so you might know, hey, this bank doesn't like commercial real estate, but this bank does, or this lender loves this type of asset or this business, but this one doesn't, and you have all these resources and tools to connect people.
That's exactly right. So, I mean, when I always tell people, if your business needs money, the first place you go to is the bank, right? When they tell you no, what's the next thing you do? You go online and you Google, all right, where do I find this money I need? And what we found is, Google and likewise with a bunch of other search engines and even AI today, they're looking geographically with where you're at. And sometimes you'll get lucky and they'll throw some from out of your region that will maybe do it, but maybe not exactly for what your specific situation is.
Right.
Whereas with us, we're connected with banks all over the country on a regular basis. And we know exactly which ones will say yes to, let's say, flight simulators, right? Whereas if you go to Wells Fargo, they're probably going to be like, flight simulators? What are you, learning how to fly away and not pay us back? It's every bank is like so specific and niche with how they think, how they operate. It's almost like you have like an ocean of them, and you're trying to find the one drop of water in that ocean that will give you that money.
Right.
You're looking, but you just can't see it. It's almost like you need like a magnet for that drop of water, and we're that magnet.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you guys have found that over time. And it seems like your dad, too, with what he was doing before he put in his 1 year notice, it seemed like he would have had experience in such a fast-growing company that eventually went public with contracts, agreements, lending, and stuff like that. Especially if they're buying smaller companies, they need to figure out all the financing for each of the purchases and loans, and then perhaps they're working with investors and private money and things like that.
Absolutely. And so, just to give a little bit more of the piece of that. So I'll say how it further connects us into real estate. I want to say just before we started Brightview, my father had actually bought a couple of properties.
Awesome.
And so he had one in Georgia, which was a duplex. That was a beautiful property. And a couple in Lothian here. And so he was naturally a real estate investor already. And so he already kind of had a foot in that door that led us to a broader view of where to go from there. Now, granted, we didn't go to the meetups or anything like that and weren't really established until, I'd say, 2023, where everybody started seeing us and saying, hey, those are the red shirt guys, or, oh, that's Brightview. We were still learning investing, right? And so from my position, even as a pipe fitter, I was watching from the sidelines what he was doing with the properties and how tenants were behaving. So naturally, it was kind of a foot in the door already for me as well, where now, I'm helping him manage a couple of those properties and potentially transitioning at some point to owning those properties. So we'll see. Investing there's always an open door as long as there's a conversation.
Yeah, I was going to ask, one of my next questions is going to be, how does this tie into real estate? Because to lend for real estate, you have to understand how real estate works, how real estate investing works. The finance side of it for someone like you or your father wouldn't be that difficult, but the actual management, the actual construction side of it, the ARV, the rehab and stuff is something that would have to be learned. That's far out of the financial side of things, in my opinion. So I guess you either started going to meetups, or did you start reading books or podcasts, or just pay attention to what your dad was doing as far as real estate was concerned?
Both. Dad's my mentor. And so, even when I think I'm right, I listen to what he says, and he's got 50 years of experience on me.
Yeah.
That counts for absolutely everything. So if he says you got to go to this meetup, I go to the meetup. Yeah. If he says you got to cancel this meeting to do this, okay, canceled, done. I'm not saying that it's like that every time where, it's just an easy conversation, right. But, you got to understand, especially with him having the father figure role, we're in this together, and I got to trust that he's in this for our best interest, right? And if he's telling me to do this, there's a reason behind it, even if I don't understand that. Right. And as long as I understand that and I can rest with that at night, I know I'm in good hands.
When you're underwriting real estate deals over the past few years, where do investors make the most mistakes that you see? Is that typically around like rehab budgets, ARV, just where in the deal analysis do the loans sort of fall through if that happens?
Couple areas. I mean, really, it's the three key areas when you're looking to renovate properties. It's the purchase price, it's the renovation, and the after repair value. Boy, where do I begin? I mean, I'll get investors that'll come to me and say, hey, I'm buying it for this, renovating this, and the ARV is like $500,000, but there's no comp that says that. And there's like, where are you finding that? And they're like, oh, well, an agent told me, or
of course, yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, and that's the reality is, agents are there to sell, right? So naturally they want you to keep your hopes up and think, hey, this has got rainbows and sunshines growing out the house. It'll be worth $1 million.
Right.
If the numbers aren't there, they're not there. And that's our job, is somewhat living in reality while also having that wishful thinking, right? We want it to be that way, but it's got to be there.
Yeah, because you would love to do the deal too, but you also need to get your money back.
Right. So, it's tough to say that, because I know I've got great realtor friends that aren't like that, so I wouldn't say,
for sure.
There's always exceptions to the rule, but I would say that's why there's investor-friendly agents out there that do live in reality and meet with us, regularly, and they know how we think, and that they're like, oh, okay, it's important that I make sure my buyers know how they're going to buy the property. Right. So, okay, there's kind of a bridge there. So the ARV, that's one part of it. The renovation budget, that's another. That's where it's important to have a good relationship with your contractors, more so than just saying, hey, come out to check these properties, and, you don't give them any of the 4 that they looked at. They get burnt out quick.
Do you ever vet contractors?
Oh, all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. So, I've got a good couple right now that have done work in my home, travel down from Richmond to Hampton to do projects for my borrowers. And so if anybody needs a contractor, I try to be a one-stop shop. If you need a referral for anybody, if I know them, I either know them or I know somebody that knows who you need. Mm-hmm. So I always have at least 3 or 4 good contractors ready to go, because everybody's schedule is, it's hectic. But, figuring out the renovation budget, that's paramount, right? Because once you know the ARV, you know your renovation, you know how much you can buy the property for, which comes to the biggest component of that mess. If you pay more for the property than what it's worth, you're losing money right out the gate. Most people think my profit is on the back end. It's on the front end.
Right.
So, if you're putting down a $29,000 down payment, there's a good chunk of your profit right there.
Yeah.
Why not have that on the back end, right? Or that's where creative financing really comes in. And, even with us, even when we were brokers, creative financing is everywhere, right? Even with as strict as the money is in our side, the one of the most creative ones that we've suggested to date is where if the seller's open to it, have them sign, let's say, a promissory note with you for what your down payment's supposed to be, that you'll pay it on the back end. And that way, it's almost like a gift of equity, and in the sense of where they sell it to you at the purchase price of exactly what you need it at with no down payment, but that promissory note is still there and it's due on sale of the property.
Right.
So that way, it's not part of the loan. It's not tied to the real estate because there's no lien, but they're still getting that excess amount of what they need, plus they're getting paid that purchase price at closing. So it's almost like you're getting exactly what you want for dinner, and you're getting ice cream after.
Right.
You just got to wait for it to go down, for a little bit. So it's one of the best scenarios we've used yet.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Investors certainly have to do their due diligence. I mean, I know like sometimes emotion or just being too eager or ambitious can get in the way, but diligence is important. There are some real estate professionals, whether it be agents or other people that will gladly talk investors into buying property. We see that a fair amount on the buy and hold. I shouldn't say a fair amount. We see it now and then on the buy and hold side. Again, friends with many agents. There are spectacular agents in Central Virginia, and most of them who are actively working with investors or retail buyers are phenomenal. I love the good agents that we have around us. There have been 2 or 3 in particular that have convinced investors to buy properties, told them what it would rent for, and then they hire us as property managers. We tell them what market value is, and then we tell them we'll try to get it higher if we can, but like the market kind of determines that. We'll use all these, professional marketing. We'll do all kinds of graphic design, and we'll have the best agents show them, and we'll pull out all the stops to get these things marketed as high as we can, just like we would for any client.
Yeah.
But when it rents for $200, $300 lower than what the person who handled the transaction told it would be, and they didn't check in with us first, that's when we usually get the brunt of it, where they're like, no, my agent said this and they are right because they are top 200 in the state or whatever, and you guys are wrong. And I'm like, well, all right, I'm sorry. So we've run into that a few times where people get very ambitious with the numbers, and I think ultimately it's the investors really, if you can reach out to a lender first, the lender doesn't want to lose their money. If you can reach out to a property manager, the property manager has to live with all the decisions that they tell you on a monthly basis, on all the analysis they give you on a monthly basis, and we absolutely will not, well, at least speaking for Peak Property Management, we won't float those numbers, because we know if we do, we have to live with that for as long as you're a client. And so those who are just trying to make the initial sale and then dropping it, it's, that exists. So that investor really there's tons of resources, lenders, property managers, agents, like touch base with them before you buy that investment, and then make your decision from there.
Well, so from the lending standpoint, because we do short and long-term financing, so we totally understand, because that's pretty much how we look at it, is with a 30-year view for DSCR, and even some are going as far now as 40 years.
With the first 10 years interest, or
well, some are doing it that way. Some are doing it as 40-year fixed, fully amortized.
Interesting. Yeah,
it's here.
Crazy.
We know folks that are crazy enough to do that, but usually they don't last long in the industry. But hopefully they stick around and it works out. So looking at it with a long, I'll say long distance lens, it's always good to check with your lender before you get it under contract, right? The worst advice I've heard in this community is get it under contract first, figure out how to pay for it later. And I said, boy, I haven't seen you drive around your Lamborghini, but I can imagine it got repossessed quite a while ago, because that's not how it works.
Right. I think to some degree, like it's kind of like, it depends, right? If you've done 20 deals with you and you know how you operate, you could probably get the deal. That is, I think, fine. If you have contingencies in your purchase agreement that says it's dependent on financing, sure, but you might be ruffling some feathers if you're just getting stuff under contract and it's falling through. You don't want to be that investor either. You want to be an investor that follows through and can complete the deal as much as possible. If you have no lending relationships and you don't know how things work and haven't done a handful of transactions, you probably don't want to follow that advice. Yeah,
that's the biggest trap I've seen with newer investors, especially with our ties to young investors. We naturally gain, I'll say, a newer investor following, so I hear all of their issues. The number one hole we hear them fall in is, I was told by this guy and this other person I should do this first. And I'm like, why? Right? Have you asked yourself, why are you doing it that way? Is it just because they said it, or do you understand why they said it?
Right.
And they're like, oh, well, I didn't think about it that way. So I'm like, well,
you got to think for yourself. Like, take advice, but still, you got to think for yourself. You can't just assume. Because you can be in these good rooms. There's awesome meetups.
Oh, yeah.
There's awesome meetups around. You can get in those good rooms, but you still got to think for yourself, regardless of who's telling you. Well, I mean, listen to this podcast. Listen to us. You still got to think for yourself. Like, make your own decisions. Especially, it's ultimately your money, your life, your finances, regardless if you're borrowing or not. It's going to impact you if you're, So, fortunately, lots of great people in our market in Central Virginia that really are supportive and want to help. But yeah, we still got to think for ourselves.
Yeah.
Speaking of like newer investors, how do you feel lending on people's first deal ever with zero experience?
It's my favorite.
Yeah.
So, boy, we've came such a long way. When we started this as brokers, the maximum financing we would do with, let's say, someone that's got 800 credit, no experience, the most we would do is like 92.5% loan to cost and 100% of the renovation.
Yeah.
So you'd have to put down a down payment no matter what. Now we're at the point where I'll do up to 100% purchase, 100% rehab, can't exceed 70% of the ARV.
Right.
I don't care if you've done a flip at all, ever in your career, even if it was 20 years ago, 30 years ago, never. We'll end up to 100% for you. As long as the deal makes sense, you've got the credit, you've got the finances ready to go, showing that you're not just solely relying on our money to get this done. You've got some padding there because, for most of these loans, they're on a reimbursement draw basis. And so you have to start the renovation to get reimbursed for it as part of your loan. So as long as you've got the money, you've got the credibility, contractors are somewhat easy to manage, especially with the term of the loan that you have. You've got time, even if you've got time to get on your contractor schedule if you are like starting from scratch, right? So we'll lend to just about anybody, right? Yeah. So even today through broker connections, the lowest I can lend on is a credit score of 0.
Yeah, and that says something about your confidence in your underwriting, right? Yeah. Because as you guys get the experience, you can start to offer more attractive loans because you can maybe widen the guardrails a little bit and like allow more. Whereas when you're first getting started and you're learning, you got to keep those guardrails really narrow to make sure you don't hurt yourself, right?
Yep.
And so now that you have this experience, I assume you have a better underwriting process, a more tested underwriting process. You're able to kind of like widen those guardrails a bit, offer a little bit more flexible, more creative, more not lenient, but more like 100%.
Yep. So just like 100% financing, where there's not a lot of, I'll say, like true hard money lenders that are doing that, we're also able to defer your monthly payments, roll in your loan costs, stuff that's not usual in this space unless you're working with like, let's say, a private money lender, right? So it's kind of bridging it, right? You never know what you'll find in the space of lending. Everybody's different.
What's your opinion on the difference between hard money lender and private money? Because you just refer to yourselves as hard money. My vision is like it's just more corporate. It's more like it's more maybe a little bit more structured in many cases, more of like a business versus private is like a guy that you've had a relationship for a while. You definitely should have documents in place, but it's sort of like it may not be as structured.
It's more Wild West.
Yeah, a little bit more.
So I'll use my father's favorite saying here. We're like the institutional private money lender.
Got it. Yeah.
It's just a hard money lender at that point when you.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's sort of how I see it too. It's kind of like a gray area between the two, but hard money is like you're positioning yourself as like, hey, we're a business. We still have the relationships. We still care about the relationships, but we're a business. We have structure. We have processes. We do this for a living. Where private money may be like, hey, I do this other thing for a living, but I have a lot of capital and I'll lend it out and get a good return.
Yeah, they're investing in that sense, right? And really we all are when we're lending, but it's more so like a true investment to them rather than this is paying my bills, right? And so for us, I mean, that's aside from paying the bills, we're here to help, right? Which is any indicator you want to look at. We've been true to that mission statement, from the beginning of we're here to help. Right. So whether if we're sponsors of groups, starting a group, volunteering with the Alliance, there's all sorts of ways to give back and help out the community that pays your bills. Right.
What was your, speaking of like groups, you started one, the Young Investors in Real Estate. What was the pull to start that group? What was the motivating factor?
Still don't quite fathom how that happened because when we started this, Young Investors in Real Estate was a Facebook group starting out. And I told myself, we're stacked with lending right now. This can't be bigger than this. It can't be an in-person meeting, right? And then I would say about 2 months later, we grew to about 250 members. And I got asked 3 times in one day, all at different places, when's your meetup? So, naturally that made me question, is there a demand for this?
You got voluntold to start having a meetup.
Pretty much. Yeah. So, because I remember we go to probably about 14 different meetups every month all throughout Virginia. And a lot of them have power to the folks that run them. They've been doing it forever. It's their thing. Cool. They all run them somewhat the same, right? They run them almost like a classroom. And these things are typically held at the end of the day, right? They're about, let's say, 2-3 hours long. They give you a little bit of time at the beginning, but then they give that speaker the whole hour plus time. And the problem that we ran into is it's at the end of the day. I've either got work to do, I'm ready to go home, or it's such a good topic that I have too many questions. And because it's at the end of the day, when they wrap up, everybody's jetting out the room, so I can't even talk to maybe some people that I wanted to network with. And the speaker's ready to go home too. So they'll stay, most of them will stay and answer follow-up questions and network as well. But, they get crowded like flocked as soon as, you've been a speaker, I've been a speaker. So everybody flocks to you at the end and they're like, hey, I've got this question. You're there to network too. So we wanted to make it different, right? How do we make this a true networking group without losing the educational piece of it? So we said, okay, 2 hours, 6 p.m., 8 p.m., that's perfect timing, dinner time. We'll go somewhere with food, so restaurants, naturally, good spaces, somewhere with a private area, and good food that we can feed people at the end of the day as a thank you for coming out and giving us your time minimally, right? Okay, so that's solved. We've got venues, speakers. How do we handle that, right? Well, speakers are going to have no more than 30, maybe 40 minutes at most if they need it. That way, it's not too much where it's too much to unpack, right? It's not feeling like a classroom anymore because the beginning of our meetings are held as, for the first 30 minutes, it's just open networking. So that way, that time is guaranteed, it's there.
Right.
And so if that's a half hour, speaker's a half hour. If they run even a little bit over, you've got at least a good chunk of time at the end for questions and for networking. So we've got the schedule here now where it's established. Now all we got to do is find the speakers to make it happen and get the word out.
Yeah. How often? Once a month?
Second Monday of every month, 6 to 8 p.m. For the time being, we're at Expectation in Stony Point.
Cool. Awesome.
They've been great to us, and they've let us grow in there. So back in October, we had our 1-year anniversary.
Sweet.
And we had clear over 100 people.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And so it is, but the back room area, we took out all the chairs, all the tables, and we still had like sardining in there. So we're like, hey guys, you guys have been great as a venue for us. Is there anything else, any other area that we can, I don't want to say dominate, but utilize to keep giving you guys more customers in your restaurant? They're like, you want the whole back dining room and the back room? We're like, yes. So now I've got 2 upper monitors that I have to climb on the walls like Spider-Man to plug in an HDMI for. And we got a whole, almost like a classroom setting now, but it's still open for networking. We haven't changed the schedule ever. We've had awesome speakers. We try not to repeat our speakers and throw out topics that anybody can come into the room for their first time and feel like, okay, I can see where you guys are going with this, instead of just being like, yeah, sure, IRAs.
Self-directed IRAs.
Yes, like that's a heck of a topic to have your first meeting for.
That's
I'm
a
like,
tough one.
yes, so it's you've got to almost like herd the people that come and make sure that they understand that it's on a level that's comprehensible to like somebody walking right in the room.
Yeah.
It's almost like when you turn on the TV, go onto a movie, and you're halfway through.
Right.
You got to figure out where you're at and be able to get with it, right? So it's been great so far. I mean, we're almost at our 2-year anniversary, and we've gone from we're not going to have an in-person meeting to 2 years strong with plenty of sponsors. When I started this, I said not going to need any sponsors.
Right.
Didn't need any sponsors. Again, the community came in and said, hey, we want to help you get back.
Right.
And so, we give a tremendous amount of benefit to folks that come on and want to help the community.
And you have a couple thousand people in the Facebook community, right?
We are, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, just shy of 2,500.
That's awesome. Sweet.
Yeah, so it's been a great ride so far.
So it's young investors in real estate. I'd mentioned earlier in the podcast, you have said that like everyone's a young investor, right? One thing that I did notice when I started to see these young investor meetups, I would see photos from them, and I saw a lot of people that weren't age-wise young. And I thought that was awesome, right?
Yeah.
Because I had been to, I forget exactly the specific name, but it was like young business leaders and young this and young that. And I would speak at those events, and it would be in front of 40, 50 people at these events. And I was always the oldest in the room. And I was just like kind of thinking like, man, I'm about to age out of these groups. And it's interesting that you have a young real estate, investors in real estate group that is open to anyone in any age. And it's not necessarily like, hey, look, this is really for 40 or under or 30 or under or anything like that. There's a ton of value in what could be offered by people who have been doing it for a couple of decades, right? As long as they have the mindset that they're there to help and not just like some ego-driven, like all these young people can learn from me, like, but in many cases, these people who have been in the game for a while can also support by way of like mentorship, financing, like resources, tools, experience, creativity on like how to get deals done. There's so much value they add. So what was the draw in not actually limiting the age or suggesting that, hey, if you're above 30, maybe you don't really want to come to this?
So really what I noticed from going to all the meetups again, there'd be new people that would come in the room and they'd never come back. Right? So that tells me that something in that room is discouraging, whether that's the topic that they're talking about, the experience level of the group, or maybe even just the name of the group. And that's directed at nobody specific, but that's all the possibilities that can be from someone that's this is their first time here, right? Investing is not rocket science, right? It's if you're structured and you're determined, you're willing to network, you can do just about anything you want. But if you don't feel welcome in the room on your first time, that can crush your confidence.
Hard to combat.
So we wanted to make it an open space where anybody felt like you can come in the middle of this movie and you can find your way no matter what movie it is. And so that's where the young investors part comes in. And I always joke when people ask, how young do I have to be a young investor? I say, well, our youngest was 83 when we started.
That's
so
awesome.
that usually opens the door and they're like, oh, okay,
Sweet.
I'm welcome here. So, the other aspect of it, tying into the newer investor conversation, we would get, let's say, newer investors we'd see at the other meetups, and we would see them for, like, let's say, a year or 2 years. We would say, hey, have you found your first property yet? They're like, oh, no. I'm like, well, what's holding you back? They're like, don't know. I don't feel like I know enough. Don't have the confidence. Don't have the money. Right. And then we'll ask them a year later, like, hey, did you find your first property? They're like, no, don't have the confidence, don't have the money. I'm like, well, what are you doing? Like, why? What is your purpose for coming to these meetups every month for 2 years, right? We wanted to make it where if you come to this meetup and you don't feel inspired by the time you leave, we have failed. So we're determined not to fail. If you come to our meetup and you're giving us 2 hours of your time, I'm going to make it worth your time, because that's the first thing I learned from going up to Albany. Time is money, right?
100%, yeah.
If you're giving me 2 hours of your time, I'm not charging you for it. You're trusting me that you can trust me in this journey, that whether if you're new, been doing this, whatever, your trust is paramount to me.
Right.
The moment I lose that, we're done.
I think you had talked about mentorship in your group. And so I could see where that would really make it valuable to come if you have some sort of structured or maybe unwritten membership within this group. How does that, do you have anything structured or?
So we do. It's taken just about a year now to put this program together, and hats off to Don again. For everything we've done with Brightview has been in the name of furthering what we can do for you as our customers, as investors, whichever the case may be. And so the first roadblock for us was, having to put as little of your money into the deal as possible, right? Okay, 100% financing. That job is done. Okay, what stalls you next in getting that deal to close, right? Well, insurance is taking quite a while to write a policy. Cool. We're now licensed for property and casualty insurance, which we're setting that up this year. So we're almost there. I think August 1st is our starting date. But Don's licensed. We can do it. We're licensed with just about every carrier that we can sell policies for. And then last one, title, right? It's great. There's benefits to working with attorneys, benefits to working with title companies. We prefer title companies. The fastest I've closed a property in Virginia start to finish is 4 days, and that's with the help of our title company. So, having a good relationship with the title company, we looked at purchasing at some point, which we still are. If a deal has to go through that's on fire, we want to be able to say, hey, this one's got to take priority.
Yeah, push it through.
So once you take all those roadblocks away, we're helping you guys get your deals done faster, smarter, and with more confidence. So with the mentorship program, we're like, okay, we've already fixed this problem on the lending side. How do we do it for new investors that have never done this before,
right?
That doesn't know the process at all? So at first, last year, Don was more or less heading this where it was shaped to be like a nonprofit. We had like an 11-person committee. Nice. And I'm like, whoa. We are overcomplicating this by like 10 miles. Let's go back to the beginning. So I met with one of our fastest growing investors, where 3 years ago she had no properties, and now by the end of this year she'll have 11.
Awesome. And
she's renovated and held just about every one of them. I met with her, and she said, before I could even say anything, she said, Tom, what's a good way I can give back? And I said, well, how did you get started, right? Think back to that, and can you relate to anybody that you've met through your journey that's at where you were? And what's a good way that we can lift them up? And she said, you know what? You're right. So what do we got to do that? And I said, well, funny enough, we've already been working on it for about a year. We just need mentors that we can trust trust our why, that this is not a get rich quick scheme. You're here to help somebody get their first property done, right? So she said, all right, sign me up. I said, all right, well, I mean, we know what your credit is. We know you got money. We know you got the experience. I don't really have to vet you. You're like the easiest part of this so far. So I met with her about every week, and I, bounced ideas off of her for like, hey, should we do this? Should we look at this? What do you think, right? And she's like, well, she really helped fine tune our process. And so now I believe we rolled this out in February, where we had a QR code at our Young Investors event that said, hey, we're coming out with a mentorship program. Do you feel like you're stuck? You've been going to the meetups. You've been trying to learn how to do it. Maybe you don't have the money or don't have the credit, can't find your deal, whatever it is. You feel like you need the extra help to get the first one done. Scan this QR code and answer this application, and we'll see if it's a good fit. And from that first meeting, we got over 10 applicants just from our room of like 30 or 40.
Yeah, that's great.
And so we wanted this to be a benefit, just to start off at least, a benefit for being in the room, right? We want to incentivize, you need to be in the room, right? This is where the deals are done. And so, now I've got clear over 20 applicants.
Yeah.
And I don't have nearly as many mentors.
Right.
So we told everybody, hey, we appreciate this is what you guys want. This is what you guys need. Let us test it first. Right. And then we'll get back to you guys, and we'll let you guys come into this, and we'll pair you up. So Kate Stiles, wonderful mentor, wonderful friend. She's grown tremendously in this space. That was a perfect first mentor for this project. And boy, we just had to figure out of the pool of 10, which were the best ones to start out with. And throughout running Young Investors, I notice everybody that comes and goes every month. There's 2 that are perfect that come as many times as they can. Mm-hmm. They're always happy to be there, and they're always happy to help. And that would be Tori Eselstein and Eric Miller.
Awesome.
Now the investing couple.
Yeah.
So those guys, they came to every Young Investors, and even this past Monday at our presentation where they showed off the investment property, showed a picture of them at the first one, and they're like, that's us from back then? Yeah. So they got to see where they grew quite a bit, but they were determined to get this first one done. They were willing to put in the sweat equity. and they were willing to do just about anything. This meant the
Right.
world to them.
Right.
And so Tori had told me about how this had meant so much to her from a young age to be able to do this. And so you could really see their why, as to why it made sense to pick them as the first ones. And so I got to see over the past couple months, granted I've been somewhat busy with lending and moving and my own properties now, I got to see them, throw a lot of the junk away. So they got to see what a hoarder house looks like.
Right.
They started out, they hit the ground and ran with a 5-bed, 3.5 bath, 2,400 square foot house. So that was quite a project to pick as your first. Yeah. So the house was full of stuff. We had to use Kate's daughter to get into the house because they didn't leave keys.
Oh my goodness.
They got to learn how to work with wholesalers and negotiate, right? Wholesaler was such a joy to work with. And yes, I say that as sarcastically as possible. That was not fun, but they learned from it. They learned what it looks like, how folks can behave in this space, how not to behave, and how to price out certain things for the house, maybe what to even look for when you're selling the house. Because right now, our first property is listed on the MLS, and there's a lot of things that the agent, we asked her, Megan Wilt, Better Home and Gardens Base Camp, we asked her, there's, do we want to get the driveway paved? Do we want to get some of these trees cleared out? She's like, leave it as is, get it quoted, and we'll see if, when we get offers, what they want, right? Yep. And we're like, you know what? That's smart. Why do this, stress about this, pour more money into it if these guys didn't even want it done to begin with? Right. You're right. So they're learning just as much as we are in this process, right? Trust your experts you have in this field. This is what they do.
Right.
So, these guys have learned a lot, and we've learned a lot with them.
Yeah, that's awesome. So. That's cool, man. I like how you're building a lot of different dynamics to that community to make sure people have what they need. Yeah. And you're pulling other people and getting them involved versus just like doing everything yourself. Like I think it's a lot of different perspective, and it's also good that you're vetting your mentors too, because there's probably 20 people off the top of your head that probably could be mentors, but you got to protect your brand. You got to protect your reputation and who you're putting in front of other people as well. Yep. What are some other current projects that you're working on, or what's next for you?
Well, for right now, expanding the mentorship program is there. As far as young investors, we're always looking to expand. If there's anybody that wants to start a group, let me know. I mean, I don't charge anything to use our brand. We just ask that you adhere to our guidelines of, what we want to have, how the group needs to be run to ensure that new people feel welcome. Everyone's a young investor, and that you don't lose the audience, right? If you feel like you can do that, you feel like you can take guidance and almost act as like a mentee in our program, there's always a conversation if anybody wants to start their own group. So we've been looking at perhaps Fredericksburg, Tidewater, trying to expand in Virginia. We were hoping to expand out of state this year, but at this point, I'm hoping to just start another group somewhere in Virginia, especially since we've had so much latitude with the mentorship program. I can table out of state groups until next year. As far as Brightview, I mean, we're at the point where we're hiring. I mean, awesome. So we've just brought on our first processor, Brandon. He's doing a phenomenal job. He's learning both real estate investing, financing, and SBA at the same time. And I'm like, bless your heart, brother, because I'm here 4 years into this, and I still only know what SBA stands for. Right. So, so we're always growing tremendously, getting into an office now by, I think we said between August and September. So now there's more overhead for us. So if you guys need financing, we've got plenty of money. Use ours, not yours. That's typically our plan right now, is keep doing what's working and keep growing.
Sweet, man. How can people get in touch with you?
Usually smoke signals work, but if you can't reach me that way, you can always reach me at 804-767-0573. That's my personal number, and now it's on the internet as well. So if you guys need to text me, call me, either works. If I'm not in a meeting or being interviewed in a podcast, normally you can reach me. Or look me up on Facebook, Young Investors in Real Estate. You'll see me in there. I'm there all the time. If you guys have any questions, it's usually a good place to put them out there. If you're asking yourself, this is a dumb question, the only dumb question is the one that isn't asked. Right. So,
is there anything we didn't hit? Any final thoughts?
No, you did a great job, dude. I mean, boy,
awesome. I appreciate that.
Yeah, this has been quite an experience. If you guys if this is your first time listening, take the opportunity to keep listening to more episodes. You guys will gain such a value, from hearing everybody's journey. And Steven's doing a great job with, shining the light on the folks that really are key players in this industry, I'll say. So hats off to you, sir, for that.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And that's one of the reasons you're here, because you're quickly making a name for yourself and the community that you're building around you. You're doing good work, man. I'm looking forward to tracking your progress and looking at the meetup group and everything like that. So,
of course.
Thanks for coming on the podcast, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate you having me.